And we are live. Now, timeless is often synonymous with luxury. And for owners of great homes, the aim is always to create a sense of elegance and a sense of sophistication while remaining practical and functional, and of course, remaining within one's budget. And to tell us more about this, we are proud to have Ashmit Alag today. Now, welcome Ashmit to Seekh Talks.
Thank you.
Now, Seekh Talks is an initiative by the Sikh Chamber of Commerce and Samir Singh, and it's a platform where we bring you icons and achievers and change makers from diverse backgrounds. Now, we create learning through listening and engagement with speakers. I'm Gulraj Singh Shahpuri, and I'm a business turnaround coach, and I'm proud to be the host of Seekh Talks today. Now, today we're fortunate enough to have with us Ashmit Alag, who was honored with the Wall of Fame from the Art Institute of Seattle and was put on the list of the top 40 retail designers under the age of 40 internationally. Now, Ashmit first did his studies from Parsons, the School of Design in New York, and the Art Institute in Seattle, Washington. Now, very close to Vancouver, where I used to live, by the way, Ashmit. Now, he lectured on interior design, visual merchandising, space psychology, classic and classical designs, and architecture. Actually, he taught architecture and has spoken at more than 30 universities in 12 countries. Now, his company, Transform, has designed more than 100 personalized residences with more than 200 retail stores. Ashmit, I know him personally because I know whenever I try to call him, he's never available because he travels across the world and to study and teach design to so many people, considering the Indian lifestyle and the needs and the maintenance of Indian design. Now, Ashmit strongly believes in his philosophy is constant innovation and platinum service quality. Welcome, Ashmit, and thank you for giving your valuable time to come on this live with us today. It's such an honor to have you here. And it's also an honor to have our viewers here. Now, Ashmit, your video isn't clear, and I know a lot of people are going to say this, but your audio is perfectly clear. So let's hope that your audio remains clear. And Ashmit's video will come in and out, so be patient, guys. Welcome, viewers, and thank you for taking your valuable time. And today we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and you're going to get a lot of learning today. And our hope is that you're going to walk away with a complete game plan on interior design and your own home's interior. Okay, now the key takeaways from today's talk you're going to get is how to live a life that is right now, that is full of premiumness, and how to tune your lighting around the house for your benefit, and mostly how interior designing works and what you can do with and without a designer, and fourthly, how you can design on a budget. Now, for this, stay till the very end because at the very end, Ashmit is going to give us some bonus tips and takeaways. So do stay till the very end. Now, viewers, here are some rules of engagement. Viewers, in the next 45 minutes, we're going to do our job by giving you some hard-hitting thoughts and ideas and solutions. And we're going to do our best to give you the secrets that the best of the designers in the world wouldn't always want you to know. But you're going to have to do your job by dropping in questions and comments throughout this talk. And it's going to be wonderful because when your questions come in at the right time, I'm going to pop your questions on the screen and we're going to make it very conversational with Ashmit. So let's begin our conversation with Ashmit. Ashmit, I've known you a little bit and I know that you love classical design and you love modern classic design. And you know me, I love minimalism and I love modern design. And we've always sparred about this. Why is it that you're more right than I am? Why is classical design always a good way to go?
Well, one, I get paid for my opinion.
Right.
Well, I certainly believe in timelessness.
Yeah.
I believe that we are in a country where we might change our cars 3 times in 10 years, but we usually don't change a sofa even once in 10 years. So I think we're not looking at latest because latest is usually very trend-centric. It's very on and off. It's very in and out.
Yes.
More like a fad, more like a trend. But if you go in for classic, which by the virtue of its own meaning is classic and timeless, it sets you apart. It sets the pace for things to be, and it doesn't require much housekeeping for you to be changing things. It's just once well invested.
Now, what's the difference between classic
I
and
also
modern
believe that modern classic is, so let's say there are basically 4 schools of design. There is a minimal, then there is contemporary, there is classic, and then there is classical. To give you an example in terms of clothing, I would say minimal, I don't need to explain. Um, but something very contemporary could be like torn jeans, or
Yeah.
you know? So it's torn jeans or cargos or chinos, and they're in and out of fashion. They're constantly in a race.
Right.
Classical would be something like a sherwani or a jodhpuri or a sari. It's very occasional. You can't
Right.
wear it every day, but if you can, great, luxurious. However, the day that you're wearing something which is classical, the moment somebody sees you, they will understand that this day must be special in your life, either
Right.
directly or indirectly. While classic is like a pant and a shirt or pant and a jacket, never in fashion, but guaranteed never out of fashion.
Never out of fashion. Yeah, absolutely.
So it
Now,
becomes. Yeah.
Ashmit, we in India are obsessed about making places look luxurious. Okay? Making places look luxurious. How do you define luxury? And in a design sense, how do you define luxury?
Well, luxury is one not about possession at all. Luxury is about consumption.
Yeah.
So, in India, the myth is that you buy expensive and you put expensive, and of course, it will look expensive. But the point is, then you don't need any education or experience or exposure or wisdom or knowledge. All of that is only put to use when you derive a lot out of very little. That's where design comes in. It is also surprising that the amount of money in which a house is made in India, you can buy a house in Europe or US, including the land price, in the same
Right.
amount.
Yeah.
And कहने को यहाँ की labor सस्ती है, and it doesn't make any sense because luxury is never a milestone or the end. It is always a journey. Luxury is pretty much only the thing that you don't have already. The moment you have it, it's not luxury anymore. So the point is to constantly evolve that. You have a jacket, now you have a tie, you have cufflinks, you also need a pocket scarf.
Right.
Is it useful? No. Is it for the
No.
vanity of it? Yes. So it's layers and layers and layers. So luxury will be decadent, will be about layers and layers of things. And all things disposable. Nothing to be just bought in.
Wait,
I'll
say
cite an
that
example.
again.
For
All
instance,
things disposable.
buying is not luxury.
Let's get into that. What do you mean by all things disposable?
Khareed ke rakhna is not a luxury.
Ah, okay.
If you might have a bottle. Let's say people who drink and they might buy a bottle of alcohol, and it might be for a lakh, 2 lakh, whatever amount, and they keep it. They never consume it, but
Right.
they'll end up cleaning it every time, or housekeeping, and it becomes a liability. So it's a luxury that you possess, but you don't use. And the
Yeah.
example would be, let's say I buy a wallet for about 2 lakh rupees from a boutique. And
Right.
I might think that I am luxurious by buying a 2 lakh rupee wallet. But scientifically speaking, the showroom or the boutique where I bought it from, the boutique owner must be having 20 of them. Scientifically, he should be 20 times more luxurious than I am.
Right.
But he's not, because he's not consuming it.
Yes.
So, and luxury also is dependent on the wastage. If you can't waste it, you're not luxurious. Nothing is a waste if you have enough. So
That's a very good
the
point.
dependency about luxury.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Luxury is, the fun thing about luxury is luxury cannot be sold. That's the example. Luxury cannot be bought. Luxury cannot even be talked about. I personally believe luxury is like God.
Right.
God cannot be sold. God cannot be bought. God cannot even completely be talked about. There are people who have given up their lives to find about God. And by the end of their own life, concluding, they said, we couldn't even start talking about God.
Yeah.
That's luxury. You
Yes,
can only feel it. And, at the sake of being almost narcissistic. But the point is, true luxury, not only is it not for the common man, it has to be protected from the common man. उसके बारे में कल भी नहीं किया जा सकता. That's
Say
how
that
bad it has
again,
to be.
because that was very important. Say that again. True luxury. That's one I'm going to take to the bank. Please tell that sentence again.
Well, not only is it not for the common man, it has to be protected from the common man. It has to
Right.
be touch me not. You can't even think about it. Yeah, an example would be, let's say a Rolls Royce passes you, different Rolls Royce, and you see a Rolls Royce every single day. By the 31st day, the perception of Rolls Royce would go down in your mind, even if you have nothing to do with it directly.
Yes.
It is about what others do not have. And hence, it does not necessarily depend upon money. It depends on anything. It could be a thought process, you know. And luxury, the difference between luxury and rich is enormous. I mean, it's the difference between an Amir and Rais. Uh, a person can all of a sudden become extremely a rickshaw puller, with all due respect, can become very Amir overnight with 100 crore rupee lottery one.
Right.
But if he doesn't change the way he lives, way he approaches things, where he lives, you know, how he conducts himself, probably his school, his kids' schools as well, he might land up being peace, never the royal.
Right.
And
Now,
like they say that royalty.
When you see people in India, a lot of us, what we do is we tend to actually cover up things and we don't enjoy things. We always save them because, when guests come over, or we'll take out our formal dining set then, or something like that. What is your opinion on that? Because that really flies in the face of what you're saying, because that's not really living luxurious then, is it?
That's possession, no? That is absolutely anti-luxury. That is gulami of mehengi saman. That's not luxury at all. Luxury would be consuming it. You see, how does the thought process of a person improves? By being at a part of something every single day. So let's say, I'll give you an example in terms of design. Why is it that in India, homes cost a lot to be made and they still don't land up looking luxurious? They land up looking rich. A lot of them. Because, well, at the expense of, I'll have to speak about my own industry, but the point is, there's a big difference in terms of knowing about something and knowing something.
Yes.
If you don't know about, if you are not, if you can't deliver it, borrowed gyan doesn't go very far. So I would say it's not a Montblanc pen over here at all. It's probably a Montblanc pen in your pant pocket, or rather, it's not writing with a Montblanc pen, but writing on a Chanel or a Montblanc writing pad. Write something and say, well, what have I written, and then scribble it and throw it away. That would be luxurious. Disposability is necessary. So even if you have kids at home, start using a stemware. You are gradually making them more cultured. You're making them enjoy things. As a result, they'll just be better in everything that they do. It's conduction. In our office, we turn people how to turn a page. Because usually when people turn a page, they either leave a mark or they leave a dent. And I saw it from Guru Granth Sahib itself. The pages have been turned thousands of times.
Yes.
And Granth Sahib always looks brand new.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
So it's only about how you conduct, how you ask for a glass of water from your own servant at your own house tells the other person how many servants have you seen and from what kind of childhood. Or how does somebody clean their hands with a cloth napkin after having Indian food and put it back on the table. You can say what all kind of restaurants that person has been and how many. It's got very little to do with money, fortunately.
Yes. Ashmit, let's get into some thoughts on. I want you to do me a favor. Your sound is a little bit crackly, but your image is not very stable, but we can still hear you. If you can just do all our listeners a favor and just come a little closer and speak up a little bit, so that'll compensate a little bit for it, okay? But we won't be able to compensate for everything, but we'll compensate for that much at least. Good. Yeah. All right, Ashmit, now you've been a person...
Unless you want to give a few seconds, I'll switch the router. Do you want that?
Hanji,
Would you want me to switch the router? It'll take maybe 20 seconds.
Oh, yes, please do that. Yes, that'll be amazing. Do that. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep our listeners entertained. I'll just go to the solo layout and then we'll get you back as soon as your image looks good. So Ashmit can't hear us because I've just kicked him out for a moment, but I'm going to ask him some questions that even he doesn't know I'm going to ask him, because I know a couple of things that he doesn't know I know. When he was growing up and when he was doing design, he actually was doing makeup artistry as well, because he's a person of just wonderful taste. And when they found this out, they got him to even do makeup and things, and because he's just got such good aesthetic sense. Now, for the viewers, Ashmit and I have been arguing for a long time about design sense. One of the things that I'm not going to cannibalize his talk, but I'm just waiting for him to come back. One of the things that people don't know about me, and I'm going to tell you a secret that I never tell anybody, and it's on the net, so I think other people are also going to see this, is that I also have a diploma in interior design. Now, I got this because my father, he wanted me to actually become a builder, and I wanted anything but. I wanted to become a psychologist. So while Ashmit comes back, we're going to talk a little bit about this. Hey, Ashmit, you're back. Oh, wonderful. We can see you live. We can see everything perfectly. Thank you for some quick thinking. Ashmit, there's a secret that I don't think anybody knows yet. You were caught doing makeup one time as well. Is that true or not?
Yeah. I used to do makeup for the Parsons fashion shows. I was the editor, which is the last mile, the trimmer. I did it for 2.5 years. Big deal, big position.
Big position. We'll take your word on it. We'll take your word on it. So now, after Parsons and after studying at Seattle, what brought you back to India?
My parents, which is primarily my brother and my father, and I've always believed that we must be the change that we wish to see in the world. Yeah. And the point is, if we want a better society, we must create it. And because you can never change your motherland, right? I was born here. I'm always going to be the son of India. So rather than reaping and sowing the seed over there, let us do it over here in that event. And then the family bonding was very strong and tight. I used to visit India every 4 months, all the time that I was away. I never visited an Indian store. Yeah, I was terribly homesick. I used to keep coming back often. And besides that, opportunity lies in chaos. And when you talk about India, India is incompatible. The point was to bring out the knowledge, acquired from the West, and Indianize it and apply it over here and make it better.
Very, very noble of you. Now, tell us about top 40. Tell us about 40 under 40. Tell us about that.
So the good thing about 40 under 40 is that you don't apply for it. You can't apply for it. They decide who's going to be in the list. It's unlike a lot of other awards, which are like kitty parties. 20 people pool in money and they give one person money to the other.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we don't get into publications and things. So I was awarded the 40 under 40 credit. It was by a US global shop. It is primarily for people who've contributed in the retail industry through design and psychology. Psychology has always been a big part of what we design. It primarily came from that.
Oh, wonderful. Now, one of the things that you know about me, and this is why we get along so well, is because I have a little bit of interior design in my own background as well. But I mainly learned contemporary design and designing for apartments. So it was always about designing on a budget. And in India, that is always the name of the game: Sasta, Sundar, and Tikau. All right. So tell us, because you're a luxury designer, and luxury comes at a price. And luxury can be timeless. So pay per use is pretty good, because if you sit on the sofa a million times and you've paid a lot of money and it's very luxurious and it's timeless, you're going to get a lot of money back from it, because each time you sit on it, it's only going to cost you maybe 50 paisa per sitting.
Surely.
You still have to be I mean, I've done the math, right? Let's be practical here. Let's be practical, because our purchasing power parity compared to the West is maybe 1/5. Compared to London, it's 1/10, and compared to America, it's 1/5. We need to be 5 times cheaper than those countries for us to actually make our money go as far. How do we do that here in India? How do we and retain the quality as well? Tell us about it. Give us some tips. I need to know at least 3 tips for our viewers.
Sure. Well, firstly, there is no such thing as a Sasta Sundar Tikau. Okay, there's no such thing. I'll go with just the opposite of it. What is the opposite of Sundar Tikau? It's महंगा, बदसूरत और बिल्कुल ना चलने वाला. So ये कौन लेगा? That's not how you would gauge a rich versus a poor. There's no such thing as a Sundar Tikau. However, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. If you buy once and you really look forward to it and you will take care of it, it'll pay you back many, many folds. You see, the example over here can be taken of all the royalty from India and abroad who are, for the namesake, just royalty now, but who do not have a lot of money. But when you go to their place, when you speak to them, they ooze richness.
Yeah.
Because Raisi has got to do with money, but very little. It's got to do with the conduct. So how you place what things, and I'll give you a scientific way to tweak that as a designer as well. Let's say there is a room with 4 walls, okay? Now, I'm not counting the cost of the ceiling and the floor, but let's say 4 walls, and let's say my budget is 10 lakhs.
Yeah.
So as a math, I will be spending about 2.5 lakh rupees on each wall.
Yeah.
But scientifically speaking, every place has a focal point. Every piece of art, every art, every sculpture, every room, there is a focal point. Point is, what is the first thing that you would see when you are able to see that overall thing?
Yeah, that's the focal point.
That's very important, because that's the way we are able to even read. Because when we're reading, we see the entire page, but we are only able to go word by word. And sometimes, if the word is complex or very long, we just skim it through.
Yeah,
that's how the focal point in the eye works. Now, if we know how the focal point works, and I know that everybody who is going to come into a room, because usually there'll be only one entry door to the room, I would know what is the focal point. It's based on science, it can't be wrong. And rather than 2.5 lakh rupees, I'm going to spend 5 lakh rupees on that focal point. Because it's the first impression, and first impression is not the last impression, but first impression is definitely the lasting impression. It sets the tone for what to be expected for.
Yeah.
You're going to look at that 5 lakh rupee thing, and then you would assume that the other places are going to be of the same virtue. And the perception goes maybe 20, 30, 40 lakh rupees. That, for instance, if somebody is wearing a very expensive belt and very cheap shoes, we would like to assume that the belt is fake. Yeah. That's what happens in interiors. So everything has to be consistent. But you can raise it up. I mean, a regular serving tray and just a placemat of cloth in that tray leverages the standard many folds. Then you do not need a 1,000 rupee tray. Actually, you can have a 100 rupee tray and beat the 1,000 rupee tray many, many folds. It is not buying expensive. It's being creative with it.
Yeah. No, that's very well put. Now, let's keep talking on the concept of money. Hiring designers can be expensive. And in India, we don't call them designers. People say, I'm hiring an architect to build my house, right? That adds to the cost. And that's a very realistic cost. How do we, firstly, do you ever recommend that one should just scrap the designer out of the whole equation and do it themselves? You kind of answered that at the start. And if we do go with the designer route, how do we still make it economical? Let's keep talking about money and economics, even though you want to talk more about luxury, and I'll keep bringing you back to value for money. Because
the important part of a designer is to be able to do everything that you want, everything at the price that you want, which you couldn't do it yourself. What's the point of studying for 5, 10 years? Because again, if you want to just buy expensive and put expensive, then you are no more than a sourcing agent. Then why study designing? A designer will always, 100% of the time, has to bring in whatever you want and more at a price which is lesser than you would have spent on your own. And in India, yes, this is true. People are willing to spend on the chemist, but not willing to spend on the doctor.
Yeah,
you have to spend on the consultant. And your own experience is never going to be useful for your own self, because you're never going to make probably 50 homes. I don't know anybody who has 50 homes. A designer would usually have hundreds of homes and the experience from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've actually seen one thing after spending a lot of money on my own home. Thank God I had a designer, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Now, for those of you who are listening, Ashmit was not my designer, because Ashmit and I keep battling over, I'm modern minimalistic. He is completely sold only on modern plastic and things around it. And he's tried to convince me, but I've been a little bit ariel in that sense. But I'll tell you why I saved money going with the designer, with the architect route. Material sourcing isn't my cup of tea. They were able to source material much cheaper than I was ever able to do it at. And there was no wastage or minimal wastage and no screw ups. I think if I had just factored those in, if I had done my own designing, the end result would have been I would have paid more had I not gotten a designer. What do you think? Is that generally the case?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no time to learn from one's own mistakes. And that's why we study. We study so that thousands of years of information can be just boiled down into a couple of years.
Yeah.
And we learn from other people's mistakes. There's a very interesting quote over here, that creativity is all about increasing the risk.
Yeah.
While professionalism is all about minimizing the risk.
Creativity is all about increasing the risk, whereas professionalism is all about minimizing the risk.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, do tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and designers are not artists. A designer who concludes that they work more like an artist are actually artists and not designers, let's say. The job of a designer is to be able to scientifically provide all that is required, but then add on so much more. So what we would add on, let's say, okay, the sound of the flush would never come out of the powder room, never. You know, and if you're studying or if you like to write, your hand's shadow is never going to come on the writing desk.
Yeah.
If you wear spectacles, there'll be a glare-free lighting throughout. You know, just about every space, the way it is designed, the space will become conducive. Rather, not just conducive, it will also become a catalyst for the purpose it is intended for. In our own office, for instance, in my room, it is naturally easy to get in depth for any point that you might have. In a conference, if you have 50 points, you can easily check mark all those 50 points. It's easy to go fast. In the main studio that we have, it's virtually impossible to be tired. And I'm saying, how can you learn it? I mean, some people come from site, they might be tired. No, you can't be, because it's scientifically designed in a way. Yeah, and in terms of psychology, that's an impossibility to do so. It's like saying red is a bold, attractive color. Yeah, and it just is. It doesn't matter what caste, color, creed we come from. It's scientific. It will happen. So are the other elements in terms of design that you can bring in. There's colors, textures, lights. There's no one formula. Thank God there's no one formula. Otherwise, the computers would start doing it. Yeah. But an amalgamation of multiple things you can start putting. And that's what got me on the wall of fame at the Art Institute.
We're going to go more into that, actually, because that's something I'd love to know more about, and we're going to get into your teaching as well. But now let's talk about today. COVID is a reality. Robin is asking, Ashmit, define luxury post-COVID. What is it going to be? Because after COVID, yes, money will be less, money will be scarce. Honestly speaking, the economy will be tighter. India is going to not be in a recession, but our growth will have slowed down to anywhere between 0 and 2%. That's the latest forecast. America and all these countries will be at -2, -6%. How do we define luxury post-COVID?
Well, I believe designing is going to become more, how would I say, more foundational. Wastage is going to get minimized, but luxury is not going to go. If at all COVID has to teach us something, it should also teach us that we do not know how much life we have and who all around us has how much life. And for the people who will buy very expensive cars and they take them out once in a month or once in 2 weeks, it is also an indication to them very clearly, live what you have right now. Why save it? So while saving becomes important, okay, I mean, saving has always become important, but the point is to live right now, maximize it. And how things can be different after COVID. See, when I'm talking about luxury, I'm actually not talking about money at all. I'm talking about conducting it. It's got nothing to do with, we all have heard, right? Class doesn't come with money. We've all heard with?
Yes, absolutely.
And thank God, it does not go with money either. All of us know many people who must have been very rich a couple of decades ago. They might not be very rich now, but the conduct is. It's something like somebody worked in an armed forces, even if they were in military for 6 months, 20 years ago, you speak to them for 5 minutes, they were in the armed forces.
Yes, absolutely. Always a 4G, you can tell.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it will significantly change. And when it comes to homes, homes are very permanent. I very strongly suggest do not buy something a little cheaper because it is cheaper. If you do not love what you're buying, you're not going to use it. As a result, you did not save that money, you wasted that money. All of us have some amount of clothing in our wardrobe, which we bought because it was on sale and we were not in love with it. So वो पैसे बचे नहीं, वो पैसे भी waste हो गए क्योंकि हमने कभी पहनी नहीं. It was too lower than what we should have done.
Now let's talk about how we can use our time more practically during this lockdown. What are some tips that you can give us that we could do things at around the house, interior related, in this lockdown time? Because we have a few more days to go and you never know. This time could get extended some more. What could we do?
There could be another lockdown, who knows, after a few months. I hope not, but you never know. The point is to be ready. One of the things about luxury is it's the ability to be able to do what you want, when you want, without any negative repercussion. You're having lunch and you want to go off and doze off to sleep, and you can without a negative repercussion. That's luxury. What you should do, I mean, involve yourself in. There are many courses. Invest in space architecture or spatial psychology, which is also called environmental psychology, which is the impact of spaces on human beings. Why we do the things we do, and then how to control those kind of movements. Um, Invest in declutter. That's the most
In,
important.
in decluttering.
Yeah. A space is an indication of the mind that you have.
Yeah.
For example, when we go to a very nice place, a very nice hotel, we do not ask for a toilet, we ask for a restroom.
Yes.
It changes the vocabulary. So our
Yeah.
vocabulary is nothing but an indication of what is going to happen outside, and then improvise on it going forward. So decluttering, and then layering yourself. Of course, there is a connotation which says less is more, which I completely
I was just going to say this. I keep saying less is more. You keep saying layering yourself. When will this debate end? I think we're going to have to fight it out in a boxing ring eventually. We're never going to see this one.
I don't believe in less is more. Just the way I believe practice doesn't make perfect.
Right.
We all know, we have all been writing for about 30, 40 years. 30, 40 years is a lot of practice.
Yes.
Our handwriting should be beautiful, is it?
Mine is worse than it was before.
We know people who've been driving 10, 15, 20 years. Practice makes perfect. It should be perfect, is it? It's not. It's just absolutely going in one particular direction. There are a few points I can talk about, which could be takeaways from this. Invest in lighting. And I don't mean fancy lighting. I mean the color of lighting. So, for instance, the whiter it is in terms of color of the light, and the brighter it is, the more words per minute we talk at a higher.
Okay.
Yep. And the hands expand and the feet expand. So if you look at a human being in plan, everything around them expands, almost like their aura lands up expanding. And the opposite of that is true too. The yellower it is, and the dimmer it is, almost to the amber level or the orange level. Even biologically, the tonsil drops down. Your voice becomes thicker, you speak less words per minute, you condense, and things become deeper. So the difference in terms of thought process here becomes, white light is good when you want activity or dynamicity even in your thought. You want to think about a lot of things, great white light. You want to get in depth, yellow light. And there is a reason why you would never find a fine dine restaurant in white light. It is not that no designer would have attempted it. They would have failed so miserably, it wouldn't even leave a trace. So it's pure science to it.
Yes.
So depth, yellow light. The other is colors. You can play around with colors in terms of the visual weight. Every color has a visual weight. Some colors seem to be coming towards you. Some colors seems to be receding back. When we talk about luxury, for instance, sometimes we give 3 sets of curtains to our clients. Summer, winter, and monsoon, because in winter you can put velvets, burgundies, and deeper colors, and in summers they just wouldn't do. But Indians generally love monsoon, so it could be more sheer based things. So find out what works for you. While there is a lot of science about what each color does, there is also a matter of it comes under social science. It doesn't necessarily come into science, because it is open to perception by the people. See the kind of colors that work for you. But the darker something is, the away it seems to become, and the room seems to become bigger. Right. The lighter it is, the more it'll pop the opposite way. Lines do something towards that too. Taller lines or vertical lines makes things look tall. But while they stretch in proportion, they also bring it closer. So there's a fine balance you need to do. Diagonal lines make us look anything faster. If you're reading something, and if some of the words are in italics, you will read it faster.
Oh, I didn't know this.
If it is bold, you will read it slower. Now, try to do that. But the moment you're reading something and some words are italics and you do not want to go fast because you want to control it, your eyes will be moving back and forth, wouldn't be stable. Because the movement comes. We're nothing but a reflection of what is around us. It's around there.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Now, let's get to teaching. I know that you have had your own institute, and I think you still have your own institute. A lot of the confidence I see in you, I suspect, comes because you also teach what you know. Is that true or not? Because I know that being a public speaker myself, when I used to talk about the things I do talk about now, I was not as confident. But because we get to repeatedly say these things at different conferences and at different venues, each time you say something, you become more and more confident at it. And I see a confidence in you that probably I wouldn't have seen if I knew you 10 years ago. How did you get into teaching?
I was very lucky to be around a bunch of very important professors and people. And I would say that my single biggest quality is memory. I was able to remember what all I've learned.
Okay.
And the point is, when you know a lot about a subject, you must give it back. It's a necessity. Otherwise, I think it's cheating. It's like hoarding, very anti-luxury. It's not consumption. and uh, and while teaching, you get a chance to speak to scholars who would be coming up with their own research as well. So while what I do at Transform, which is my design company, is design as design becomes the hardcore product. But what we really do is infuse psychology into design to make it workable for the person's psyche of that person. Now, teaching allows because you get to meet with scholars who share notes. Um, so for instance, I had an observation about the color green, which was only while speaking in a forum. And we like to believe that green is the color of nature, correct? Or nature is green in color. But if I request you to, just close your eyes for maybe 5 seconds and visualize you're in a room where the flooring and the ceiling is green color and all four walls are green color. Black. Would it remind you of nature?
Absolutely not. It will freak the hell out of us.
So it's a myth, somebody said it, somebody heard it, nobody cross-questioned, and we started believing that it's the truth. Fact is, green has got nothing to do with nature, absolutely nothing. If I look at it even scientifically, and scientifically looking at it, very important, is that 71% of the earth is water, which is either blue or black at night.
Yeah.
And in the 29% where we have land, we have mountains and we have deserts. There's no green. So where did that notion came in from? We don't know. But we certainly know that turned green with envy. Color of money is green. And by a lot of psychological observations and conducting experiments, green becomes an irritable color. It's not a soothing color at all, by that way. In fact, the other test would be, when you're traveling, let's say, and there is no artificial light and only half a moon, so not even very bright. If there are any leaves or grass, you would see it, but you will not see the flowers, which proves that the eye likes to catch green first. And the only way something would like to be caught is that if it becomes irritable. The way body functions is till the time things are the way they should be, we don't feel them. You feel your teeth only if it pains. You feel your ear only there's something wrong in it. As long as things are doing the work perfectly, like they say in Matrix, we don't get to feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's very interesting. Wow, Ashmit, you're changing my perspective on a lot of things, starting with green. Absolutely. Now, tell us about some of the myths. Tell us about some of the myths of design, because let's go more into this. And to our viewers, we're just heading to the home stretch. We're just going to be another 5-6 minutes here. So start putting your questions for Ashmit, because this is the one opportunity where we can pin him down. Even the Hath Nahi Chadta. He's a tough guy to come across. So we've managed to get him here, and we're going to ask him everything we can. Now, tell us about some of the other design myths that we typically see that you'd want to dispel right now.
Designers are expensive. They are, but good designers are not. If you look at the overall cost of the project, by the end of the tenure of the project, if you spend the design fee and the execution fee, designer is going to save you the money. Other myths, design can be very fancy.
No. One of the myths I see is customer service costs money. In design, especially because you have to have a very expensive operation and you have a lot of people. How do you take care of that? What is your experience on customer service?
I wouldn't say I take it strongly or lightly, but I can only tell you scientifically. And scientifically, it is this: that while we all believe in God very strongly, there is no guarantee. But there is a guarantee we are here because of two set of gods, which is the parents. They brought us to life. The second set of God is the client that keeps you alive. Alive enough that you can service the first set of God. And if the clients are really happy with you, they will allow you to become the second set of God for the next generation that you can bring. And everything falls in place.
Wow. After an answer like that, I think I'm speechless. No more questions from me. No, no, no. This is remarkable. This is remarkable. I'm going to put up a question on the screen right now. This is a very interesting question and a funny one at best. Archana is asking that what if a customer has a piece of art which you see as dreadful? How would you fit it in? What would you do?
Ah, well, this is the beauty is in the eye of the beer holder.
Yeah,
Beer holder.
year old. So you're a comedian too nowadays.
The reason has to win. The opinion doesn't have to. So if I feel that it's dreadful, there must be my reasons why I feel so. And if the client really loves it, there must be a reason why they do. And if we reason out, there might be a reason that they're looking at it emotionally. And then, as a designer, you need to celebrate that reason and put it forth. See, the project has to win. The client
Yeah.
doesn't have to win. I don't
Yeah.
have to win. If the project wins, we all win.
Yeah, that's the double win. If the project wins, then we all win. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never come to a situation. I don't think there'll ever be a situation in which there is a conflict between a designer and this, because we're paid to give our opinion. So
Yeah.
that opinion must be very honest and upfront and
That's
based
very,
on
yeah,
points.
that's a good answer. Now, Natish Adi is asking that, Janab, what do you keep in mind while choosing the right vendor?
So many things. It's difficult to answer. Well, one is approachability is paramount. You know? The person has to be approachable. The person has to be very reason centric. And I'm glad that the previous question was posed: what if I find it dreadful and the client loves it? The reason has to be aligned. The person should be reasonable. If the person, I also believe, there are just basically two things required to do anything well. There is a skill and a will. If you have the skill and if you don't have the will, skill is useless. And if you have the will, and even if you don't have the skill can be acquired.
That's true. Very well put. Very well put. Last question from me is: we keep talking about home design and stuff. You also do retail design. Tell us about that.
We're India's largest retail design company by portfolio.
My God.
That's what I
Give us
started.
some names. Give us some names, because you have to say with names.
Well, we designed every format for Madura garments and Urban Mills. We did visual merchandising for them to begin with. So Arvind, Madura, Reliance, Tata, um, just about every major group actually just put me a question like that. It's about 2,700 stores.
My
So
God.
just about
2,700. That's like a store a day. That's a store.
No, we used to work on about 70, 80 projects at one point of time. And that's very early career at that time. And then I realized that in India, consumerism is not very hailed up. And जिस देश में consumerism ही नहीं होगा, वहाँ retail भी बहुत तरक्की नहीं कर सकता.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how coming into homes, because retail was still about buying and selling, and homes was about consuming lives.
Consuming lives. All right, good. Now, I'm so glad that we had this last hour or so with you, Ashmit. It's been so wonderful. A big thank you to you, Ashmit. Thank you for being part of our program. It's such a wonderful time we had online with you. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to tell the viewers a little bit about Seekh Talks and what's coming up next. But how are you spending the rest of your COVID days? What are you guys doing as a family, or do you get to go out at all? What are you doing? Or are you dealing with clients?
We're 10 people in the house.
Yeah.
4 kids, 6 adults. How the day goes, like that. Truly. We play badminton, play cricket, but we don't know what happens to the entire day. I was joking with my brother, 20 दिन हो गए, पता ही नहीं चल रहा है.
Oh, wonderful. True family time. Some true family time. Wonderful. Our viewers are going to have a lot more questions for you. How do they get in touch with you in case somebody wants to contact you? What are the best ways, maybe through LinkedIn or maybe your website? Could you give us a couple of ways to contact you?
Email would be best.
Email, all right. What's your email address?
It's Ashmit, ASHMIT, .ALAD, at Transform Design, TRANSFORMDESIGN.IN.
I'll just put that up on the screen for everybody. Ashmit at transformdesign.in. That's the best way to reach Ashmit. Alag, I know a lot of more questions are going to be pouring in. Thank you, Ashmit. You have been such a wonderful person to have on. It's truly a pleasure and so nice to connect with you again after such a long time. Now, Seekh Talks is made possible by Samir Singh and the Sikh Chamber of Commerce. We are being streamed live right now on 3 Facebook pages and 2 YouTube channels. If you enjoyed today's talk, please give us a big thumbs up and write a comment. And if you loved today's talk and if you loved Ashmit, please do subscribe to the channels so you'll get notified when we go on next, when we go on live next. And speaking of next time, please join me tomorrow at 4 p.m. sharp. We'll go live with the one and the only Gaurav Arora, who's a focused mastery coach. And I believe he's the world's only focused mastery coach, who's going to tell us about how to go 10x and be more productive in this lockdown. I'm Gulraj Singh Shahpuri. I'm going to see you here tomorrow at the same time, at the same place. Thank you for being with us and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.